Hello boxing fans, right now I'm talking Richard Towers, Gregory Tony, post-fight, and this was a fight I didn't see coming. I expected Richard Towers to outbox Tony over the first few rounds and then take him out late. And put like this, the only thing I was correct with was taking him out late, because I have no idea how we got to the 9th round. It is still beyond me. If you want to call this fight a robbery, I cannot argue with you. You know, this was not, I can't do a round by round because I only saw the highlights, but there was a new number of flashpoints in this fight, and the first flashpoint came in the first round. Towers came out and he stuck his left hand right in the face of Tony, not as a jab, but as like a defense disruptor, just trying to find his range, trying to find a pathway for that right hand. The only problem was he also telegraphed that right hand. You know, Tony, for the most part of the first round, could see exactly where that right hand was. He could always see where it was coming from, and at the most part he could always get on the back foot and get out the way of it, or at least take the power out of it. Towers' defence was leaky in the first round, in the first flashpoint, or first or second round it was. Also, he showed a total lack of head movement. He got clipped once or twice by Tony, but then to be fair, he did rally in the late rounds and landed the right hand, and Tony for then took a knee. So it does show that Towers does have great power in that right hand. The only problem is he telegraphs it coming. You know, straight away I did realise, like I said, I've got a lot of problems in Tony's game throughout this until the 5th round. You know, firstly, Towers had no head movement in this fight. He was getting clipped with shots constantly. You know, no head movement at all. He had no guard. There was no defensive guard. You know, he was taking jabs and hooks, and he could take them all basically. If you threw it, you could hit him with it. He had a total lack of variety in shots. You knew that the only weapon he was going to throw was the right hand. There was no left hand jab as a weapon. It was just a range hand. You could actually walk through it, just like. In fact, the referee should have really said to him, "Look, stop just putting your left hand on his face. Hit him with it or don't." Like I said, once again, his defense was leaky to say the least. You could also say at some points it was non-existent. He also had awful balance on the night. You know, at times he would throw his right hand, miss, and almost fall over himself. I think he did that in the 5th round, and that's what got him in trouble as well. And also, worst of all, he telegraphed his right hand, which he relied on. If you're showing everyone that this is your only weapon, and they can see where it's coming and how to get out the way of it, you know, what can you do? And I think that was the story of the fight until actually the 8th or 9th round. You know, the next flashpoint you need to know about was actually the 5th round. He got clipped by a right hand, which staggered him backwards, you know, towards the ropes, where Tony pressed the attack. And, you know, I'm not going to lie, Tony did throw the kitchen sink at Towers and landed a good 80%, maybe 90% of his shots. Sorry about that, burp. Nothing came back from Towers. You know, I could have stopped the fight right there. The referee broke them up. I don't know what. You know, Tony thought he won the fight, but then he was like, "Oh, alright, then I've not." You know, then Towers landed a good shot of his own, a right hand of his own, which staggered Tony for a second. Then Tony came back and threw the kitchen sink at him again. You know, Towers at this point is blocking all of Tony's shots. This is like 100% of Tony's shots with his face. You know, he almost goes over the top of the ropes at one point. The referee breaks them up again. No standing 8 count, no stoppage. You know, the referee was awful, god awful. You know, then Tony continues the attack. Towers goes down again. You know, only for referee to say no knockdown. You know, what was distressing was, like, it was the barrage of punches that he was taking that was leaving him unconscious on his feet. He goes down, right, and then the referee goes no knockdown. Okay, well, maybe he didn't go down directly from a punch, but 2 seconds earlier it was all those punches leaving him half unconscious that made him go down. So I think you should give him the count. No count anyway. He somehow survives the final seconds and regroups in the corner. You know, to be fair, he did in a minute regroup quite well, and then he did survive until rounds 8 and 9, which was somewhat of a comedy act, I'm not gonna lie. Somewhat of a comedy act. Circus show, more like. You know, Tony was shattered. He threw in his own towel in the corner, and then his own corner picked up when no, you can win this fight in French, and then let him go in. You know, I have no idea what was going on in this fight. So anyway, Tony comes out looking shattered. Towers comes out looking shattered. He throws a few more punches in this round, lands a good right hand, and then Tony goes down. Then he gets back up again. It was just a joke. He ends up going down 5 or 6 times. The referee gave him a few counts. He didn't stop the fight, where he could have stopped the fight at any point. And then at the end, Tony actually went over to the referee, went, "Look, I don't want to fight anymore. Please call it off." And he called it off. Overall, I would say this was a very, very, very humbling day for Richard Towers. He needs to go right back to the drawing board. This guy basically is an anti-Price. He has zero boxing ability right now. I don't think he does. If you compare him to David Price, who is very similar to him in sort of his characteristics, he's got the great power, he's got the great height, the reach, all these advantages that you want, and everything that you want is there. Price has the great jab, which he works the right hand off. Towers, he has no jab, and he telegraphs his right hand. That's the that could be just one difference between them. Price, he's got a huge variety of attack, as Sam Sexton. Towers didn't. He had the straight right, and that was it. Obviously, there's the vast amateur experience, which I think it all comes down to the fact that Towers has no amateur experience, and he's got no time to go back and get the amateur experience because he's been in jail for so long. I wanted Towers to be a success because he actually sounds like a nice guy, but he also sounds very deluded. He thinks he can go anywhere off a fight like that. Also, another thing to add in, Price has a defense including the guard and head movement. Towers had no head movement or guard. Yeah, I could go as far as saying I cannot see a guy domestically that could trouble David Price. However, I don't see a guy domestically who Towers could beat. Do you think Towers could beat any one of the domestic contenders? Anyone who's fighting for who wants to fight for the British title? Could he beat any of them? Put it in the box. I'm just going to leave it on this anyway. Towers has got a lot of work to do if he's going to be a domestic success. The problem is, I think he's too old. The list of enhancements he needs to do is too big. But maybe this is just one bad day at the office. Who knows? You decide.